Ohayo minasan! Welcome back to our playthrough of Our Life Beginning in All Ways. We're continuing where we left off last time at the character creation for step 3. And we're finally gonna have a voice name. Like, look at it. Voice name. Right there.
Blue.
Oh! Of course I'm sure. That's my name. Oh! I'm so happy. I'm super happy. We're gonna change our back hair. Not scrappy, not pigtails. Not locks. There we go. We're gonna have long. None of that. Alrighty. And we're done with that. Well, obviously, we're not at a crush anymore. We in love. We're ready. Okay, since you are romantically interested in Cove and are old enough to start being physically affectionate more seriously, you can choose what initiative level he has throughout step 3. Ooh, we can have him be super affectionate. Making sure the player experiences what they want is important in our life, but always putting your choice first can potentially make a relationship one-sided. So we added some flexibility in how it works. Low initiative means that Cove will occasionally ask to touch the main character, and in those situations, there will always be an opportunity to say yes or no. For example, he won't simply lean over and kiss the main character as a greeting or in an emotional moment. Every piece of physical interaction will be either initiated or approved by the player before it happens. Middle initiative means there will be certain times when Cove requests to touch the main character, many chances to initiate affection on your own, and also Cove will pretty regularly give affection automatically. One example would be giving the main character a kiss because he's happy or emotional or something else. And in other situations, you can choose not to make the first move in order to give Cove the space to be the one to act afterwards. Overall, Cove can get romantic, but the player's agency will take priority. High initiative includes everything Middle does, but also means the player agency will be reduced to a degree in favor of having Cove give physical affection even more frequently and with less prompting. Instead of all the major affection-giving situations being led by a choice menu for you to decide on, some will instead be replaced by Cove acting automatically. The level is only recommended if you're very comfortable with physical affection and would prefer to simply see it happen rather than always holding the reins on. However, this level is mostly relevant if Cove ends up as your official boyfriend at some point. Situations where high initiative makes a difference tend to come up in scenes that are exclusive to being in a relationship. The parts that are also included in the middle initiative will be seen whether you're dating or not. Once you pick your level, it can't be changed later, so keep your full playthrough in mind when deciding. We hope you enjoy whichever initiative option you decide on. We're going high. I'm very comfortable, and I want Cove. I want Cove to be as adorable as he can be. So we're going high. The start of classes ended the relaxed, free days of summer. It didn't take long for you to get back into the swing of the school year routine. Schedules and homework became the new normal. Derek wasn't around nearly as much. With school and after-school activities, there weren't many opportunities for him to take the trip out to your neighborhood. Sometimes you'd hear that he was at training camp or something like that, but you weren't always sure what he was up to. We kept in touch over the phone. I ain't losing a friend. The Jeremy kid did disappear after that summer, and no one ever heard from him again. Where he went or what he might do was a mystery. You saw more of Miranda around. Since you had hung out with her on her birthday, she had opened up to you. The two of you talked regularly. She was the same towards Cove. After a while, all three of you developed a real friendship together. More summers came and went like waves on the shore, coming in and out. In your second year of high school, someone new started to visit Sunset Bird, a sunny girl named Terry Brooke. She was a friend Cove made due to both of them being ocean obsessed. Terry was more than glad to befriend you, too. Someone close to Cove had to be good company, she felt. You were pleased to get along with her as well. Funnily enough, Terry was also extremely tight with Miranda, who she had known for even longer than Cove. The four of you were able to create a small friend circle. As for your home life, the Flames also had developments. Changing laws and public perception countrywide made it possible for your moms to openly wear their wedding rings without questions. Though they had a wedding years ago, it was only recently that the union was officially recognized everywhere in the US. That was a good day, to say the least. Elizabeth came into her own and stopped being quite as irritable. She no longer worried about perceived childishness as she grew up for real. She didn't even mind being called Lizzie again, although most people used Liz. She eventually graduated high school and moved out to attend college in another state. It was a lot for you to adjust to your older sister being gone. Liz never let you forget her role in your life, though, and kept in touch. Cove's relationship with his family improved over the years. Kyra visited several times after that summer, and things became easier between the two. He was also closer with his dad than ever before. You knew they talked more, and that helped prevent a lot of friction before it could start. Cove had become so much more outgoing than when you had first met him. He was so bright, he shone. He would willingly join conversations, make jokes, put in an effort to not use overly blunt phrasing. Cove had shifted from preferring athletics to being more seriously studious as his schooling went on. Things had shifted between you and Cove, but in a way that most couldn't see. After all this time, he wasn't just your neighbor, he wasn't only your friend, or even a guy you were interested in. You were in love with him. You loved Cove. You knew that fact for certain. There was no one else you held these feelings for. It was strange to look back at it all. The future faded into your present, and then it was simply the past. Even the most fundamental parts of your life couldn't last forever. You felt that the most pointedly the day you inevitably graduated high school. It was over and you would not be going back ever again. From now on, what came next was your choice. You would be directing your own life. That was where you were currently, the summer after school ended, the first summer of true freedom. What used to be a repetitive from the typical was now going to be your first step into adulthood. One fine summer morning, you took in what had become a very special scene, the whole family having a meal together. Your big sister Liz still hadn't lived at home full-time for a couple years, but she arrived last week to spend the season here since it was an off semester for her. She wanted to make sure she was in town because you had now also graduated high school. So who knew how much rarer these moments would become in the future? You watched on as Liz laughed good-naturedly over the comment Mom made. Her Elizabeth-only mindset had only been a phase. Nearly any nickname was welcome at this point in her life. Strangely, even though she moved away, you've lately felt closer to her than you had in a long time. You idly scooped up more of your breakfast and chewed absent-mindedly. Whoa, okay, wow. I ate whatever, because I don't know what any of these other terms are except for vegan and vegetarian. I don't know what these two terms are, and I'm not gonna say I'm a picky eater. And the meal you had reflected that. It included just about everything your moms had made, though you often made your own food nowadays. With Liz around, though, your parents made even more options than usual. Your sister had been a vegetarian for a while, and they wanted to make sure she had choices too. Conversation had gone on idly without you fully taking in the words until your ears were peaked when Ma started on a bit of town gossip. And that's how I heard the news. All right, now stop burying the lead and tell us, what is this so-called news? Ma giggled as she cast a look across the table, satisfied that she had everyone's attention. Well, it turns out the Donalds won't be renting out the condo up the street as per Sunset Bird tradition, for the first time in what must be nearly 2 decades. A chorus of gasps and shocked expressions were had all around. After the initial shock, your eyebrows pinched. Mom may consider them by name, but you and Liz always viewed them as exclusively as the mean old couple who would yell at anyone under 25 who crossed their paths. Your ma continued on with the story, spreading strawberry jam over a piece of toast as she did so. They've decided to not take big trips anymore. Friends and family will be visiting them at their home. That's nice for them then. Have a good summer, mean grandparents with no grandkids, away from us. My thoughts exactly, Liz. Be nice, kids. You don't want to end up like them, do you? You and your sister crack smiles at the joke.
Well?
At least they won't be here to yell at my children anymore.
Lonnie?
At that blunt comment, you got laughter from all three of you. Engrossed in the conversation once more, you continued to chat with your family until the meal was over. Step 3, third time's the charm! As it went, once the food was eaten and the cleanup had to be done, Liz took the roll of washing dishes and passed them to you for drying to put away. You had a set of cups in front of you that needed to go in the top shelf of the cabinet. It was a stretch, but doable. You were an average height. That was simply your lot in life. You had always hovered around the expected height for your age. Let's think that we might still grow a little bit more. That was a struggle for you because you remember how you used to feel so content about it when you were younger. Liz shook you out of your internal musing by starting up an impromptu conversation. She seemed to be voicing the thoughts that had been buzzing around in your own head. I have to say, going back for another semester this fall is pretty intimidating. You'd think after the first year or two I'd have a handle on things, but no. You stole a glance at her, still placing cups in the proper place. I guess it's only fair. My first round was pretty general classes, and year 1 of my architecture major was the basics. Now it feels serious. I actually have to know some things. The laugh she gave was flippantly airy, but the way she scrubbed at the plates had more force than necessary. I think it's really cool you want to be an architect. Don't be too impressed yet. Wait and see if it actually happens, but thanks. Your older sister's mouth quirked into a small smile. It'll be fine, one way or another. Oh, but I'm not gonna try to scare you away from college. If that's even your plan, what's going on with that anyway? You think I'm telling any of you my plan? I have a solid plan for a long time. You answered the question as much as you were able and willing to. Liz's smile grew more reassuring as you did. You made it through 12 years of full-time education already. You can make your ideas happen, I'm sure. Sometimes it still felt hard to believe your public schooling experience was over. In the end, I am top of my class! And you're gonna miss it. It had been a familiar and fulfilling part of your life. Liz picked up on the silence her question ended up creating. She decided it was time to make a closing statement on the topic.
You're a good girl.
Blue, do what's best for you, and we'll be here to back it up. Thanks, you're a good big sister. At that, Liz happily passed the final dish your way. She waved a soapy-soaked hand as a farewell and moved on to her next task for the cleanup job. You refocused on getting the last pieces put back where they belong. Dot-dot-dots, dot-dot-dots, we're going with the dot-dot-dot silence, time's moving forward. You eventually moved on to a new chore, but that was interrupted by the sound of your cell phone. You casually picked it up from the table where you had placed it earlier. The phone was a couple years old at this point, having been a 16th birthday gift from your parents. They decided which model to get, but you got to pick the color. It was blue! It was blue. It was blue. It had a special charm. Oh, we can have the dolphin. We can have the dolphin. You were pleased when you had finally had a prominent place to use the gift. The screen lit up as you gave the little device a swipe with one finger. You were informed by the caller ID that it was Lee. You weren't surprised. Despite having busier and busier lives and not living in the same town, you still had a good relation with your cousin of the same age. Especially once the miracle of both of you having your own phones actually happened. She got hers first, though. Tapping at the accept button, you answered her call. A familiar, bubbly voice came through right after.
Hi.
Hey, Blue! Sup? I trust I'm not interrupting anything major. Only some cleaning around the house. Oh, then you're welcome for my call. A distraction from that must have been desperately needed. Yes, thank you, my dear cousin.
My pleasure.
She giggled and you could hear the jingling of the jewelry she must be wearing. Nothing amazing is happening for me either. I'm bored and felt like chatting. My morning shift ended, so I'm free for the rest of the day. Woo! That's good. I'm gonna make this more relatable to me. I didn't have a job when I was in school, and I didn't have a job that first summer out of school. In fact, my current job is really the first job I actually really got, besides working at the Ren Fair. And I don't consider that a job because of how it worked out. But I still did it, so possibly consider it a job. But let's go there. We can't relate. Unlike you, Lee had started dipping her toes into the workforce as of late. It made keeping in touch frequently even more complicated, but you both managed. What about you? It's been pretty normal.
Cool.
Cool. That's you then. So, how's Mr. Cove Holden doing? There was a teasing bent in her tone. She was never willing to let up on what was going on between the two of you. But that name was incredibly familiar to your ears. Cove, your next-door neighbor for the past decade at this point. But he was far more than just someone who lived on the same street. You vividly remembered the summer days you expressed feelings for each other as little 13-year-olds. We officially started dating years ago. But I love him and haven't admitted that. Are you even surviving without the boy being 10 feet away at all times? Or is everything right with the world again and he's back? No, Lee, he isn't here, just like he wasn't here yesterday, or the last time you asked, or the time before that.
Sorry.
Aw, my bad. Can you blame me? Doesn't it seem like he should have made it his grand return already? Plus, I want to visit soon and he needs to be there too. You could understand where she was coming from. This was certainly outside the norm. For the past couple months, and the last few weeks especially, Cove had been going to his mom's place in Nevada. The two of you still regularly stayed in contact over texts and calls, but still, your mind began to drift back in time to all the prior trips he'd taken to visit her. Almost every year he'd have to go away for a while and then he'd be back. I worried about him leaving me for good. We ship out care packages. Oh, do we ship care packages or do we give him special treasures? Or letters? Let's do letters. Cove made sure to mail some back to you too. That's how it was in the past, but lately he had been trying to see her as much as he could before taking long trips to another state became too impractical to do. His part-time work could become full-time soon, or he could be moving somewhere else for school. Cove hadn't actually been entirely clear on what his plans were after graduation. God damn it, Cove! Cove was hesitant to speak on that, and even with you, it couldn't be avoided forever though. You both knew that.
Well,
maybe we should switch this up to a non-Cove related topic? That works! The rest of the conversation rolled on. Not much longer though, Lee had to go and you needed to finish your responsibilities around the house. The both of you exchanged goodbyes and you went back to what you had been doing before the call came in. Time is moving, time is moving forward. As you wrapped up the last of your chores, you were approached by Liz wearing a cheeky smile. I've got Mom's keys. Want to get out of this tiny town and do some shopping in the real city? Yeah, it's been way too long since I've gone anywhere exciting, sis.
Good.
I'm driving. It was nice of you to do that. I avoid driving whenever I can avoid driving. Go get your wallet and anything else. We're going now. With a nod, you made a quick detour to collect your stuff from your bedroom. You had money saved up from gifts you'd received. After making sure you both were fully prepared for the long haul to the largest city in the surrounding area, you buckled into the car. It was a smooth ride there with light conversation about what shops to stop at and the radio blasting. Liz controlled what was playing, but she made sure to pick songs she knew you liked. It was something the two of you had always done for each other. The trip there breezed by, and in what felt like no time, you had gone from cruising down the road to cruising through the mall. Liz had her interests to check out, and you yours. Let's have the same hobbies. I think we should have the same hobbies. When turning a corner down a new length of the mall, your eyes caught a little gift store. Your friends and family had recently given you many presents for graduating high school. I want to give Cove a gift. Graduation may have already come and gone, but Cove wasn't really around then anyway. You'd kept an eye out for something good, though you might have something nice for him at home already. Eventually, the mall was explored in full, with every shop of note being checked over. Rather than going home, you decided to walk over to some of the smaller stores nearby. Liz had many thoughts on the topic.
So?
Honestly, malls are not a bastion of society. Even if the smaller stores require extra distance, the brands are so much more. Then your sister abruptly stopped talking and walking, right in the middle of the path. It was a good thing no one was behind her. She seemed to entirely shut off for a moment. Liz? The attempt to catch her attention was unsuccessful. Something else had all her focus. Before you could puzzle what might be happening, she began to mumble out of the corner of her mouth. Blue? Don't draw attention, but look. What? With a harsh whisper and a subtle jerk of her head, she urged you once more.
Hey,
look! You followed her gaze as best you could to a large bunch of colorful teens strolling down the same path. Okay? You faced back over to your sister with a confused expression and an unspoken question. What were you supposed to be seeing there? Blue, doesn't one of them seem familiar? She was practically bouncing at this point, so you looked the group over again, and this time you saw what she was seeing. Amongst the collection of strangers was brown hair, gray eyes, and lots of freckles. That's Shiloh! Our Shiloh from when we were kids! Yep, that was definitely him. I can't believe it! He's honestly just there! That's hilarious! That's incredible! Oh, but how do we talk to him? We have to pull him away from all those other people, and what if I'm wrong? Your mouth opened to reply, but she cut it off with her own answer to the question. I've got it! I'll shout the name Shiloh, and then we can act like it wasn't us. If he responds to that, we'll know it's without a doubt it's him. Blue, keep an eye out to see if he looks. Liz, can't you try talking to him normally? We're not doing that! That's a terrible plan! It's a terrible plan! Likely without even hearing what you had to say, Liz put her plan into action. Shiloh! She loudly projected the words across the way and then put on the act of casualness, turning her head away from the scene while brushing the skirt of her dress. In a supremely awkward moment, you could only stand there and attention in the area shifted to the two of you thanks to your sister's shout. God damn it, Liz! But one of the many startled bystanders who became alerted to your presence, one of them was the boy. From a distance, his large eyes met yours. He looked... A wide grin took over Liz's face. She pushed the rim of her sun hat up and away from her face while swishing back around to greet her old friend directly. Shiloh! Waving, she stepped a bit closer to express her intention to meet without really closing the gap. She wanted him to come to her. Who you presumed to be Shiloh looked surprised at the call-out. He stole a quick glance at the crowd he was with and hesitantly glanced back your way. He was trying to double-check something. Liz remained steadfast with her gaze trained on him, and ultimately, he broke away from the rest of them. After a light-footed jog across the brick path, the young man pleasantly presented himself in front of you and Liz.
Hi.
Hi, I like your hat. Oh, look at him. He's blushing at her. This is adorable. Isn't Shiloh adorable? He's not going to remember, is he? Just that simple greeting had Liz giggling.
Hey.
Hello. I'm not sure if you remember this, but I'm Lizzie and that's Blue. We were all friends when we were little kids. His already wide eyes grew even larger, their gaze darting between you and Liz. His previously chipper demeanor faded into something delicate. I'm really sorry, but I think you have the wrong person. You could tell not being instantly recognized was going to make this exchange even more of a challenge. Still, Liz was undeterred. It was a long time ago and you were really young. I get why you feel like that. However, I'm positive I'm right. You're exactly the same. That face, the freckles, how gently you try to phrase things. You're even wearing a hat. Instinctively, he looked up at his headwear with creased brows, not making the connection on why the hat meant something to her.
Okay.
We knew each other, okay? An uneasy smile settled on him as silence followed Liz's speech. He was picking at his next words carefully. And then the quiet was obliterated by a new voice bursting into the conversation. Shiloh, what are you doing? The rest of the group already left. A field trip is not a vacation. We're on a schedule. Startled, your head snapped towards the path. A distinctly unhappy individual with piercing magenta eyes, dark brown skin, and a sharp jaw stormed your way. He carried a cloud of authority with him, despite looking like he wasn't even 18 yet.
Sorry.
I didn't mean to ditch. Shiloh, whose name was now officially confirmed, gestured with a hand to add an explanation of his absence as the stranger watched him impatiently. They thought they recognized me as someone they knew, but it was a tiny misunderstanding. It's not, you're definitely Shiloh, but go for it, buddy. Liz theoretically as well as literally put her foot down at that, stomping in frustration and getting more childish the longer she was around her childhood companion.
Come on.
We do know you. Shiloh merely shrunk in on himself. The tone he spoke with was pained. Sorry. You honestly couldn't tell if he was apologizing for the upset feelings of your sister or the palpable dissatisfaction of his new acquaintance. That in itself was very, very Shiloh-like. Oh, you know him. Is that it? The stranger spoke in a dismissively scoffing tone. As the words sounded so absurd to him, it was almost amusing. Almost, but the sternness of his demeanor quickly reinstated itself. Well, do you know me? I'll tell you, I'm someone who's been forced against his will to be aware of what's going on in Shiloh's ridiculous personal life for a year. If the two of you had any importance in his general day-to-day existence, it would have come up by now. Wow, you're a douche. Don't bother trying to exaggerate any trivial connection you might have had. It's not good enough. He's with us, and you'll survive without him. Now stop loitering in the road. It's rude. Wow, you really a douche nozzle.
Excuse me?
We're the rude ones? The high-strung ranting got an audible gasp from Shiloh, who finally started to speak up again in defense. Nate, that's really mean. It's also true. We're leaving. With that declaration, and the unofficially introduced Nate indignantly spun on his heels and walked speedily towards where the group went, completely confident that Shiloh would follow behind. People sure can have bad attitudes, huh? Why can't they just get along? It's not that hard. Don't worry, though. I bet you won't have to deal with him again. And I'm sorry I can't stay to talk to you, but I hope you have a really nice life.
Bye.
Bye. And that was it. His final parting words given, Shiloh left the two of you behind to catch up with his own life he had to go live. Liz watched his exit, stunned, only to frown when it hit her that he was really gone as quickly as he appeared. It happened so fast, you hadn't even been able to get a word in. She sighed. All the energy she built up was releasing with a breath. Aw, Liz, I'm so sorry. I could have told him his last name was Fields. His birthday is October 30th. That would have proved it, but no! You spaced, didn't you? Well, Shiloh grew up to be Whoever Nate is, he sucks. He was so unnecessarily unpleasant when all you wanted to do was talk to someone for a moment. Why aren't you running after him? Liz merely shook her head, pushing off childish thoughts. I think we can leave it there, thanks. He's in the middle of a high school field trip, and it was already enough being able to see him. There's something reassuring about witnessing firsthand that he's still out there, enjoying his own part of the world. Though, if given the chance, I could definitely have a few words with him about the company he's got. She laughed, but you could tell it wasn't much humor in it. She was mad at that guy, and even if she was happy to let Shiloh go. Maybe they're only with each other because of the trip and it's not usually how things are?
Right?
True. We can only hope the same for him as he did for us. Have a nice life, Shiloh. Good luck out there, you'll need it. Liz smiled at you. It had the self-confidence you knew so well from her. Come on, little baby sister, let's finish our own trip. Yeah. No matter how either of you had really felt about the occurrence, it was something you simply had to accept. People you know just disappear and reappear in the most unexpected ways. The two of you enjoyed what remained of your outing until it was time to return home. By the time you arrived back, the sun was already beginning to set. You had arched your back as you stretched your arms towards the ceiling. While it had been a good day, it had enough activity to cover an entire week. Liz tried to hide a yawn behind her hands. You weren't the only one feeling worn out. I'll be heading up to your room, the guest room, since mine stopped being available as soon as I was out the door. Her tone was light. She had quite a lot to say on the subject when you first taken over her bigger room after she left for college, but there had been many trips back home for her since then. The room hadn't been hers for years. It was more a running joke now, that she continued to bring the topic up to this day. God damn it, Liz. Thanks for being so gracious about giving it up. I had no choice. A small laugh was shared between you and your older sister. You'd better believe you'd be back in the guest room when you've got your own place and we're both in town for a visit. We can take turns. You'll have Thanksgiving, I'll get Christmas. What a reasonable and mature suggestion. I'll think about accepting it. Blech. She flashed her familiar grin and you couldn't help but feel glad she was back around, even if it was temporary. With that, she plodded off to the spare room. You were ready to do the same. Moving into a new space was your first opportunity to decorate from scratch. Design your room! Oh my god. Ooh. Okay, we're gonna go with green, because that actually looks like really cool. I want blue, but that doesn't look as cool as like the green does. Okay. Oh, but there's no extras for green? And there's extras for blue. Is there extras for purple? There's extras for purple. Why is there no extras for green? Maybe there's things for the window. Alright, let's have a bunch of books. Seashell. Left. Yeah, let's do pictures. Ah! Oh, you can't do back if you want to do lights? Oh, volleyball, a guitar, a telescope. Let's double check all the other ones. Yeah, that's the coolest one. I don't really like any of the other rooms. Like, blue is probably the only other room I like, and even then, I don't like it. Darn it. Okay. Well, this is done. This is actually, we're gonna go with this room. You were really satisfied with the feel of your tiny part of the world. As your thoughts drifted, you decided to bite down another yawn. It was no good. Your bed was now logged into your mind, and all you could think about was collapsing on it. You trudged up the stairs to your room. Stepping inside, you closed the door behind you, blocking the rest of the house. When you turned back around, you realized you were not alone there. Comfortably perched on the windowsill was someone very familiar to you. Mr. Cove Holden, did you return home and not tell me? You returned home and didn't inform me? Oh, my dear boy. Cove Holden. How are you here? Surprise? Surprise? His tone was easy and relaxed. It certainly was a surprise. You hadn't expected him to be within the state, never mind your own house. He hadn't answered how he had suddenly just appeared back in Sunset Bird, though, to be fair. You had been astounded there hadn't been much of an opportunity for him to chat with you. Thankfully, Cove was only waiting for a good moment to start and began to explain.
So...
I got in about 15 minutes ago. No one was home, so I figured I'd come in the usual way. Look how cute! Look at his blushing face! He's so cute! He's so cute. I'm sorry. He's so cute. He's so cute. The window. A small smile had formed on his face. You were still staring at him, unable to blink in case he disappeared. You could still barely believe that he was really there, mere feet away from you. I left my bags in your backyard. I hope that's all right. You could have brought your bags up here, but sure. That was when you truly understood. Cove had come straight to you upon getting back to town. You were his first port of call, taking precedence above all else. Even though you hadn't been in when he called, Cove had ensured that he'd see you at the earliest opportunity, rather than allowing his plans to change. I am running over to you. I run to you. Every second away from him was a moment too long. As you approached, Cove quickly hopped from the windowsill to meet you. Oh, you're too great. I can't believe my eyes. The most amazing man in the world. I am kissing him. I am allowed to. We're dating. Let's do it. Cove then ducked his head as if trying to dodge your overwhelming compliment. The whole world is a little much, Blue. I don't think it is. He lowered his voice. Then if I'm the most amazing man, you have to be the most amazing person in the world, period. You felt your face burn with color. Thankfully, Cove didn't press the point. He instinctively began to close his eyes as your face leaned in closer to his. Oh, let's be adorable. Let's do it on the nose. He placed an affectionate peck on the tip of his nose before stepping back a bit. Cove rubbed the side of his head and furtively glanced down. Though he couldn't help getting a little nervous still, he was beaming. I missed you. Even if he hadn't said it outright, you would have gotten the message from his body language. Cove was grinning widely, his raised cheeks burying his eyes, which gleamed like hidden gems. But he looked at you as if you were the most exciting treasure of all. Obviously, was the trip any good? Cove's brow creased as he considered your question. He leaned in and kissed you again. Oh, he's so adorable! For a long moment, he broke the kiss and tilted his face back just enough to speak, but not so much that your forehead stopped touching. I hated it. Let's never be apart again, okay? He said that absolutely as a joke, an exaggeration, something that wasn't a real request, of course. And yet, despite all that, it felt real. Your heart hammered in your chest, your head swam, and cast adrift on the tide of thoughts and adrenaline. Cove smiled as if offering a silent apology for his sudden onslaught of tenderness, but he let the words proudly hang in the air all the same. Blech! Sorry for my stumbling over words. I don't know what's wrong with me today. Cove told you about how his trip back had gone. Soon you even recovered enough to actually listen. His mom was doing really well. She had a project in the works that she was thrilled about. As a result, Cove was going to be sticking around in Sunset Bird for the time being. Things were settled, as much as they ever could be. With Cove back once more, you felt at ease. Cove stretched his arms out over his head, his eyes on the window and the world beyond. The sun had set while you had been busy reuniting.
Well,
I should probably get my stuff and see Dad. He glanced over to you with a familiar, expectant look. Want to come with me? Sure, I can go. You know I do.
cool.
Why would I let you go back to your home and not be there with you every moment I could? Cove began to head to your bedroom door. I insist on a piggyback ride. It's a normal thing. I forced it to be a normal thing. Wait, I need a ride! Cove shook his head, a smile on his face implying that it was you and your senses he was questioning, not the request. He'd come to expect the latter, even if he didn't get why it held such appeal for you.
All right.
Okay. He crouched down low enough for you to hop onto his back. Cove was so tall that getting on his back for rides had taken some trial and error over the years, with a few mishaps and bumps along the way. Eventually, he figured out exactly how far he needed to bend down. This understanding and your extensive practice made it easy for you to climb aboard the Cove Express now. The Cove Express, everybody! Cove straightened up with poise, accustomed to balancing someone over his shoulders. Cove carried you down the stairs. You had to duck down a couple of times. The ceiling grazed against your elevated head. Still, you safely reached the ground floor of your house. The door's gonna be in the way. Get off here so I can open it up. He bent down to let you slide safely off his back. Seeing things from your usual height was disorienting after getting accustomed to looking down at everything. In all the excitement of Cove's return, you hadn't even remembered the gift you prepared when he got back. It would be best to give him now before he left your house. Can you wait here for a little while? I got you something and I forgot about it because someone distracted me. Cove tilted his head, intrigued.
Really?
Yes. You nodded with some earnest, trying to imagine how he'd react when he actually saw it. It was... Oh! I'm gonna do that. That's adorable. But I love this. Like, look at this. These are all, like, special moments. Like, I'm positive you wouldn't have had any of these choices if you hadn't played through these moments. That's adorable, but I'm gonna do the end clip because I want to play with Cove's emotions. You smiled to yourself as you ascended the stairs to retrieve the gift. It looked innocent enough, tucked away safely in your room, but appearances could be deceiving. You picked it up and hurried back down to Cove, the item hidden in your hand. You waited until you were in front of him to reveal the item, holding it out before your longtime neighbor. Cove smiled none the wiser.
Cool.
Nice bloom. It's not for you, buddy boy! You snatched back your hand and held the anklet behind your back, out of Cove's reach, while you wagged a finger at him with your free hand. No, you can't. It's not for you to wear. The gift is seeing me wear it. Cove's mouth dropped open. His hand was still outstretched from where he reached out for the gift, left hovering forgotten in the air. Cove blushed, drew his arm back, and ran a hand through his hair where it snagged against his other hand as it did the same thing. Your surprise had disoriented him. Though he didn't have any objections, even after all the time you've been together, you still knew how to have an impact on him. You're very thoughtful to remember that and everything. His soft voice tickled you, much like the butterflies that often took up residence in your stomach when it came to him. You're really seriously too nice to me. You smiled back. You have no right to call anyone else too nice, Mr. Holden. Absolutely no right, Mr. Holden. Cove brushed a hand against the pale ghost of a scar on his arm. He was at a loss for what to do now. The clock ticked away, counting the seconds of silence. Once you had a chance to settle your thoughts, you figured you'd tell Cove the intriguing news. I have to tell you, you're never gonna guess who I saw today. You didn't give Cove a chance to reply. Why are we not heading towards Cove's house? There seriously was no way that he'd figure it out. Shiloh!
Huh?
Shiloh? Cove repeated the name, his expression blank. From when we were kids. Cove pondered for a moment, then snapped his fingers. Oh! He was the freckly boy from that first summer, right? The one that moved? The guy was named Shiloh and he looks just like Shiloh from back then, even wearing a hat still. But he had no idea who I was and ran off somewhere. Cove frowned. That's I don't know. Too bad I missed it. Though you knew him better than I did. That was definitely true. Not only had Cove known Shiloh for a shorter period of time, he and Shiloh had never quite gotten along. Not that they were enemies either, just kids who were only ever together because other people they both knew. I wonder what Shiloh's up to these days. I don't have any ideas. He didn't say much.
Oh.
Oh well. That was everything you had on that news item, so you moved on to the next big update. Also, you know the mean old neighbors, the ones who would always yell at us? He cringed, recalling those particular memories back in the day was not pleasant even for someone as nostalgic as him. Yeah? They're not coming. They didn't rent the condo this summer. Cove's jaw dropped. You didn't blame him. The elderly couple had been an institution for as far back as you can remember, long predating Cove's arrival. Even now as a teenager, you found your neck prickling as you walked by their condo, half expecting a scolding for breathing the wrong way in the vicinity of their vacation home. It was strange to think of that coming to an end. Wow. Cove blinked, clearly struggling with the idea the same way you had. I didn't see that coming. People being gone, people coming back. It feels like I've missed a lot. This has been a busy summer already. Well, you haven't missed the fireflies. They just haven't shown up yet. Well, that's something. We better not get left behind. There's still stuff to do. You nodded. As soon as you left your house, Cove bent down to let you climb back onto his back for the last part of the journey. It seemed no sooner had the night begun than it was already at an end. The dawn of a new day was soon upon you. The next morning, your belly was full of breakfast and you were in a pleasant mood. You hoped the rest of the day followed suit. Later, you were meeting up with your friends, Cove, Miranda, and Terry to go into town. It was all on short notice, but that was because everyone was just so excited that Cove was finally back home. Having a nice daydream? You blinked, pushing all your thoughts away and returning to reality. Your mom was watching you with a teasing smile.
All right.
So, what's on the agenda today? I'm meeting up with some people. Well, I hope you and your friends have fun. Don't get into too much trouble. She winked at you. You both knew your moms wanted you to enjoy every bit of this summer before the big changes started. I'll try.
That'd be great.
But before you go gallivanting around town, could you bring the mail in? I'm finishing up putting dishes away over here. All right. Thanks very much. As soon as you were outside your front door, you couldn't help but see Cove and his dad standing around the road. They noticed you too.
Hey.
Hey there, Blue. Hi, good morning. You should come join us. I am going to hug him, because I'm not going to kiss him in front of his dad. Melting into his arms, Cove held you tightly until you were ready to let go. His eyes shone brightly with so much adoration that you feared your heart might stop. Even after all this time, being with him hadn't gotten any less thrilling. You noticed Mr. Holden taking in the scene of you and Cove with a self-satisfied smile. Cove followed your line of sight and shot his dad an unimpressed look. For a moment, Mr. Holden seemed like he had a thought dancing on the tip of his tongue, but decided to keep it to himself. So, what are you up to today? Me and Cove are meeting some friends later. We're gonna paint the town red. Exciting! They won't know what hit him. Cove shook his head disapprovingly, but you knew him well enough to tell that he was entertained by your notion. Yawning, Mr. Holden stretched his arm over his head. My boy and I have just been waiting around to see the new neighbors alike. It was definitely his idea. Ah! I don't know how you're not interested in this. It's big news. Besides, it'd be only polite to greet the new folks in town. Well, anyone has to be better than the last tenants. You've been here too long to see a new person rent a condo. It's what you consider an exciting development. I'm sorry. I'm laughing. These are all funny responses. Maybe I'll be a single dad and a son. I'm gonna make it. Let's do it. Cove snorted some airy laughter at the suggestion.
Oh?
You think we'll have some competition? For several moments, Mr. Holden was unable to answer. He was still chuckling when he put his hands on his hips and tried to compose himself.
Nah.
Absolutely not. We're the #1 father and son duo in town, and no one's changing that. Mr. Holden took one more glance at the currently vacant building and sighed dramatically. When he turned back to you and Cove, his whole body seemed deflated. There's no sign of them, and I still need to head over to work soon. Cove gave his dad a few reassuring pats on the back. Okay, I promise to keep an eye out so I can text you if anything happens. Really?
Of course.
Of course. Well, I mean, only until I have to meet up with Terry and Miranda. Would that still work? With a wide grin breaking out on his face, Mr. Holden looked absolutely thrilled to have his noisiness enabled. Nosiness. That works! He moved firmly to place both hands over Cove's shoulders, fixing his child with a firm stare. Son, you are my true ally in this world. Mr. Holden stood up straighter, letting Cove go. He looked reinvigorated. Okay, with that settled, I'll go make some money. That's always been the one thing I do best. Mr. Holden headed off to the garage with a big wave goodbye. Cove smiled the whole time you both watched his dad leave. liked Mr. Holding. You had for a long time. As soon as he was out of sight, Cove sighed lightly. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, just not looking forward to waiting. I guess hanging around the street for a while. Why don't I stay and see the new neighbor and keep you company? Curiosity about the new tenant was getting the better of you, and you figured that the wait wouldn't be too much longer. And besides, you couldn't leave Cove. Really? Of course, I like keeping you company, remember? He stared at you for a moment, smiling softly and thinking about his response.
Me too.
I like that too. Cove put his hands on your shoulders, his thumbs absent-mindedly moved in a soothing circle. The look in his eyes was much firmer. He was serious. Blue, you're my true ally in this world. It got a fair amount of chuckles from you. He grinned, the soticism fading into amusement.
Thank you.
You're always good to me. You're lucky to have me. I can't help myself. It's no problem. I don't know about that, but I'm happy you're always here. The smile on his face reached his eyes. It made you feel electric. And then he let go of you. Cove stepped over from his front porch steps, lazily taking a seat and leaning back on his arms. Our watch begins. Nodding in agreement, you joined Cove on the front porch steps. You both sat there in comfortable familiarity as you settled in for the waiting game on the new tenants. The neighborhood was quiet and you sighed contentedly, closing your eyes and feeling the light breeze. The only sound you could hear was the familiar jingle of Cove's wind chime. After all these years, it was still there, adorning the entrance outcropping of his house. Eventually, you both perked up at the sound of a car. A taxi followed the noise, turning into your street. Cove's eyebrows raised at the sight. He sat up straight on the stoop.
Oh?
That has to be them, right? The only people who come out here live here. It has to be. Now that you were here, you couldn't help but feel just a bit curious. You wondered what kind of person would be living in the neighborhood for the summer. The taxi pulled to a stop as you expected, in front of the now empty condo. It was the same side of the street as your house, a few buildings further. I am sorry that I am stumbling over my words. Without getting to his feet, Cove tried leaning and tilting his head to get a view of the passenger door as it opened. The single occupant exited the cab. Huh? You could feel what Cove was in that moment. After the last renters, this new visitor was definitely not what you'd expected. Oh, hi, Baxter. Hello. It was a young man, had to be close to your own age. He was dressed fully in an eclectic black and white and gray outfit. Even his side-swooping hair matched the scheme. The only other pop of color was something that you couldn't easily fashion into submission, a pair of dark brown eyes, which you caught when he looked over at his audience. Hello, folks, and who might you be? We're the neighbors. The smile, already prominent on his face, curled further. It was cocky, but you didn't get the impression it meant something at first. Hallelujah! You and Cove shared a familiar look with one another, bewildered even further. The color-coordinated man left it there, however, and with a firm click, he shut the door of his ride. Then he turned his back to you as he retrieved a large, unsurprisingly black suitcase out of the trunk. Continuing on with his own business, he strolled forward and lightly tapped on the driver's side window with his knuckles, asking for them to roll it down. When it opened, he leaned down and rested an arm on the edge. You assumed he was thanking the driver for getting him there, considering he slipped them a tip during the brief chat. They shook hands and then he pushed himself up away from the taxi with both arms, giving the driver room to leave. The taxi pulled away, rolling carefully down the road and out of sight around the corner. The new renter had finally arrived. He left his suitcase on the ground, out of the way of the street, and sauntered over your way with the confidence of someone who had been invited to join. Cove finally stood up to greet this person. You followed suit.
Excellent.
I'm Baxter Ward. It's excellent to meet you, neighbors. You were standing on the side he was approaching from. When Baxter got close enough, he offered his hand to you first. Let's shake it. Baxter gripped your hand firmly to give a satisfying shake. Welcome to Sunset Bird, Baxter. I'm Blue. Hey, Blue, I'm quite keen on getting to know you better this summer. We could be good friends. From your other side, Cove made a sudden spluttering noise. And you are? He lifted his hand out to Cove next. Cove shook his hand, still eyeing Baxter carefully. I'm Cove. Baxter's whole demeanor lit up for unknown reasons. His eyes shone as he studied Cove for a moment.
Really?
Now wait, is that a nickname or your real name? It's just my name. Cove spoke mildly, having given the explanation many times in the past, but it clearly charmed Baxter all the same. He tossed his head to one side with a laugh. Your parents knew exactly what they were doing. I can't imagine a more fitting name for the face I'm seeing. Cove. That's gorgeous. Are you hitting on my boyfriend? Oh my god! Good job, Baxter, but at the same time, don't you dare freaking hit on my boyfriend.
What?
It's really not. That's a lot. No, I agree. It suits you. He's taken. I agree. It suits you.
Not bad.
His voice. Nice to see someone else knows. The impact might have faded for you living with it this long, but I promise, the onlooker, it's a knockout. Cove couldn't face either of you after that. His cheeks were quickly turning bright red with embarrassment. You noticed that Baxter looked apologetic over Cove's increased discomfort. I'm sorry. It wasn't intended to mean more than it did. I like your name, but you don't have to mind that. I'm patiently against stepping on anyone's toes. He chuckled to himself, and it seemed like there was some extra meaning hidden there in his words. You noticed that Cove raised an eyebrow, picking up on that too. Baxter didn't even open his eyes to see your faces to know he had some filling to do. He stood up straighter, striking a slight pose with the position on his feet. I'm a ballroom dancer, hence the phrasing. Oh, I don't know much about dancing, but that's pretty cool. It's not hard once you get the basics down. Cove didn't look convinced at all. Baxter took that as a cue to keep talking.
Well.
He grinned in a way that was rapidly becoming familiar to you. If either of you two are ever looking for a partner, I'm available. Cove peeked at you, smiling softly. You felt his familiar touch as he squeezed your hand for a moment. I already have a partner. Blue's the only one I want to dance with. Sorry, she's my girlfriend. Aw, I made you say it. Thank God. You're both together? I know, Baxter. Ain't that just a shock? Yeah, we are. Now that's crushing. But makes sense. I got here too late. Should have taken a semester off sooner.
I get it.
That's a joke. Really, I didn't mean to intrude on anything you have with the offer. I'll take you up on that offer. Cove is not a good dancer, so I'm Cove? Don't take this the wrong way. You're still the only one I kissed, but I might dance with this other boy. Cove rolled his eyes at your agreement, coming right after his refusal.
Does that sound
I
alright?
really am qualified to give lessons.
Fine.
Yeah, it's fine. After that, there was a lulling conversation. Cove attempted to fill it.
So...
What made you decide on Sunset Bird? Oh, yes. Well, my parents rented a condo, so I had a place to stay while I'm off for a semester from college and not living in the dorms. There was a playful glint in Baxter's eyes as he continued.
Honestly.
Ideally, they wanted me to spend some time somewhere that wasn't too exciting. But lucky for me, they picked the wrong street, considering the two of you live here. God, are you flirting with both of us? You player, Baxter. You a player. Baxter then preemptively lifted his hands in front of his chest, giving the gesture a meaning of no harm. It's nice not to be the only one my age around the neighborhood for the summer. Nothing more. That was the story you had heard before, the same one when Lonely Cove and his dad moved in all those years ago. Cove wasn't relating still. You could have phrased it like that in the first place. I don't feel the need to keep words of praise to myself. They're not romantic come-ons. I can see that you two are very much a committed pair. I'd like to be friends if we can, but that's all. It's okay. Doesn't bother me. Glad we're working things out. Shifting his weight to his other foot, Baxter tried to move forward. So, which condo is yours? How long have you been living together? We're not. We're neighbors. We're childhood friends. I've known this boy for a decade. Oh no. Co spluttered again unintentionally. A laugh escaped you.
We're
both your neighbors, but we live in different houses with our parents. As if second nature, the two of you pointed to your homes, the buildings directly across the street from each other. Baxter's eyebrows raised at that. Your neighbors who started dating? What a couple of lovebirds. You're the backbone of a romantic society. Honestly, I hope you never break up. If you can make it work, there's a chance for the rest of us. You knew Cove well enough to tell that there was a little bit of amusement in his expression, but he sighed in exasperation. After that, you had no doubts of his claims of being complimentary. You were really starting to get a kick out of it. Well, if either of you are free, I'd be thrilled to hang out this summer. But we can save the scheduled talk for later. I should get my things inside. He gave a small nod of his head and flashed you both a dazzling smile.
Goodbye.
Goodbye for today. Bye. Cove gave a small wave as well. Bye. Baxter then turned on his heel and strolled back to his suitcase, picking it up and bringing it into his condo. You and Cove were silent as Baxter unlocked the door and disappeared inside the house. With him completely out of the scene, Cove let out a long breath.
Well,
I don't know how I'm going to explain that guy to my dad. You burst into a fit of laughter, trying to imagine the conversation. At least the job is done. We saw the new neighbor, and now we can meet up with Terry and Miranda. Yeah, we should get going. You gave Baxter's condo one last glance over your shoulder. You thought he was charming. Let's go for it. You weren't really sure when, but at some point Baxter won you over. You were curious to get to know him better. Laughing quietly, you wondered how Baxter would fit in with the rest of the neighborhood. Turning your attention back to Cove, you pushed all thoughts of Baxter aside. You both started making your way towards town. I'm taking your arm. Smiling at him, you hooked your arm around his. Cove hummed happily in response. A little while later, you and Cove reached the main street in town. All of a sudden, you stopped walking. What's wrong? I think I heard my phone. You dug your cell phone out and looked at it with a satisfied grin. There was a new message. Before you could read it, you were distracted by a small amused noise from Cove. His head was slightly tilted to the side as he carefully looked at your old keychain. I can't believe you still have that. Well, someone was crazy enough to get it to. Of course I do. I loved it. You shouldn't be surprised. I love it. You meant it. The intensity of your words had Cove blushing and looking away from you. For a moment, you were both at a loss for more words. You were stuck into remembering that day he bought it for you. Cove was the one who spoke up again.
It's nice.
I'm actually glad you like it. He looked back at you with a playful grin. Especially since it cost me a whole $6. That's like $30 in kid money. His matter-of-fact tone had you laughing deep. It took several moments to compose yourself enough to speak. I didn't realize that was the going rate. It was then, probably be more now. So you're trying to say that you were a big spender? In kid money, yes. I was definitely a high roller, remember? That had you both bursting into fits. Smiling, you refocused on the task at hand. You opened the new text from Miranda and all you saw was, I can see you. Immediately from where you stood, you started swiveling your head around. You couldn't spot Miranda anywhere, but she did send you more messages. I saw you holding Cove's arm. Scandalous. I'm being an Ashley about that. Really, Randy? The message was sent and you were back to looking around, scanning for any sign of movement and familiar faces, but they were still invisible. Cove looked at you carefully, raising an eyebrow. I'm gonna send my own joking text. If you want to keep hiding, Cove and I can just go do our own stuff without you is what you decided on. You smirked, hitting send on the message. Cove looked at you curious, raising an eyebrow. What's happening? Before you could even begin explaining anything to Cove, you both snapped your attention to the yelling from across the street. And there you saw Miranda and Terry coming out from behind the backside wall of the grocery store. They both started waving widely to draw even more attention to themselves. Cove took a step in their direction. Grinning, he put his hands across his mouth to better project his message across the street. Hey! Laughing at arm in arm, the girls stopped, only to look both ways, and then they rushed across the empty street.
Hi.
Hi, I hope you weren't waiting too long.
Hey, buddies.
Hey. Hi. I'm amazed you appear out of nowhere like that. They started giggling again. Terry glanced at Miranda, wondering what their story should be.
Ooh.
It was magic. Gesturing in a vaguely whimsical manner, Terry went along with the decision. And magicians never reveal their secrets, too. Ooh. That's fair. Terry then closed the distance between her and Cove and crushed him in a painfully tight hug. You're finally here! It's been so long! What took you? He did his best to eke out a reply with his chest being compressed.
Sorry.
Aw, he's so adorable! Eventually, she let him go. Terry looked at him with a beaming smile, but Cove was distracted, rubbing his arms. Standing there, Miranda shifted her weight from to her other hip. She watched Cove patiently with a bashful smile. Welcome back. Thanks. It finally felt official. Everyone was together in one place. From here, you weren't sure how often you would have another afternoon like this. They didn't either.
So?
Cove! Terry poked Cove square in the chest. You're gonna have to get me your schedule by this time yesterday.
No way.
Not really possible, Terry, but I can say as soon as I know. So far, he hasn't said anything. But I can tell you I'm busy with work activities. When Cove wasn't at his part-time job or pursuing his academic interests, he volunteered for the Ocean Restoration California Affiliation, ORCA. The group focused on cleaning up beaches and removing pollution from the ocean. Cove always loved the sea. It didn't surprise you one bit when he started getting involved with them. It was Cove's activity. It was Cove's activity. We're not involved. Yeah, no, we're not involved. The big smash event for the year is coming up, isn't it? Yeah, there's not that much more to do before then, but I'm kind of looking forward to the fundraising push. You nodded, wondering how the event would turn out this year. I know you can do it. And even if it goes really bad, it still looks good on a college application at least. That's true. Hey, guess what else? We don't have to stand here to say stuff. Let's go! I would like a meal now. Perking up, Cove nodded in agreement. Yeah, I'm hungry. Time to head out. The four of you head into town, happily chatting the whole way. The only decision left was where exactly to stop and eat. The rest of the afternoon and evening passed by in a blink of an eye. When night fell, it was time to head home, and you parted ways with Miranda and Terry. You and Cove reached your neighborhood without event. It was late enough that your out-of-the-way street was dark and silent. Giving me a piggyback. It was a long day out and about. You appreciated that you could rely on him to make things more comfortable for you. You tightened your grip on Cove and turned your head ever so slightly, peering at his face out of the corner of your eyes. You wondered why he felt so distant to you. It was so out of character. For a while, Cove silently stared ahead and left you alone with your own thoughts. It surprised you when you did hear his voice all of a sudden. He wouldn't look at you. It feels weird coming back to the neighborhood and trying to get into things like they're the same. And they're not. They've changed. They're still changing. Your mouth felt uncomfortably dry all of a sudden. It was true, the things that kept the people you knew together were starting to disappear. Each person had to make their own priorities and their own path now that it wasn't set for them. You thought about your own immediate future. You were still set on that for yourself. You wanted full-time, part-time. That was the basics. For your career, you thought I'm gonna start my own business. Work online. That was all. For your education, you thought and for that, you wanted to would travel. It'd all be happening so soon. You had already applied to schools and jobs. I'm keeping it to myself. Nobody knows. Now you wondered what Cove had in mind. You'd heard him consider some things for his future, but it was never anything that would have counted as a real plan. Cove stopped in the middle of the street. He sighed and put you down. You were both outside your houses. Cove looked at the ground for a moment. His mouth trembled, trying to settle on the right words to say.
So...
We're gonna have to talk about it. The future? He was right. It wasn't something the two of you could keep avoiding. You did your best to articulate what he could expect to see, and he listened quietly. Cove closed his eyes and nodded while he composed his thoughts. He looked to you when he lifted his head.
I
decided on something. Well, kind of. He smiled slightly and rubbed his arm, and then his expression grew more serious. I'm not gonna decide on a school or a career. Not this summer. I'm gonna stay here, at least in Sunsetburg. I'll probably move out of my dad's place. I'll keep my working job, keep doing my volunteer stuff, and everything else.
I don't know.
Maybe I'll know what I want for myself by fall or next year. Or maybe I'll never have a plan. Life will continue on with whatever's happening. I'm not gonna crush myself trying to have everything figured out by a timeline that someone else has set. I just can't do it. His brow furrowed and his tone was tense. It was clear how much expectations were weighing on him. I know that's not very exciting, but it's the best I can do right now. He laughed self-diversely, but with the way his face looked, you thought he might actually want to cry. Your voice cracked as you barely got the words out. You were hurt, but no more upset with yourself for assuming he would always be there no matter where you went. His face crumbled, and your original assumption was proven correct as tears easily began to fall from his eyes. His chest heaved and his words were whispered. I'm sorry. Maybe I can still go. I'd only be a little late. No matter what's happening, I want you to know that you won't ever lose me. I won't really be gone. I'll still be there for you the best I can, whether it's long distance or whatever else. Cove's whole expression softened. His lips pulled into an affectionate smile.
It's okay.
Blue, you deserve to have everything you want in life. You're the only thing I want. It came out softly, almost a whisper. You could hear your heart drumming loudly in your ears. Looking at you fondly, Cove took a step closer. He then brought a hand to your face, cupping your cheek. Doggedly, his thumb lightly brushed your skin. A shiver shot down your spine. He spoke to you softly, wholeheartedly. He meant every word. Things are hard right now. It scares me, but it'll be okay. It's more than okay. Now that things are up to us, we can make our lives better than they ever were. You could tell how hard it was for Cove was trying to keep himself together for you. You hoped that he was right and things would be okay for both of you. Finally, your eyes stopped overflowing with tears and you could meet Cove's gaze clearly. You nodded. At that, his expression morphed into a look of careful confidence. Clearly, he was still struggling with the topic and you wondered what else might be on his mind. This was a start, I think, but it's not over, is it? We'll still have to keep talking about it going forward. Yeah? Cove softly reiterated his promise. It'll be okay. We'll still always be there for each other. Is that good with you? It is. Cool. That's cool. I'll see you tomorrow, Blue. I'm already looking forward to it. Night. He pulled you into an unexpected hug. It knocked the breath out of you, yet couldn't have been more reassuring feeling. You returned his embrace and stayed that way for as long as you could.
Good night.
Night. He finally let go, giving you another smile. Then Cove started walking away, but you remained there frozen in the middle of the street. You watched him and wondered how many more times will he be able to say he'll see you tomorrow. You hoped for countless more times. finally, you turned towards your own house and vowed to yourself that you would make the most out of every moment you had this summer. And there we go. Oh my god, that took a while, but we're here. We're in step 3. We're gonna enjoy all 5 of the moments that are out right now with Cove, and we're going to see what this adorable boy takes us on in this journey. And I can't wait to see. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks so much for watching the videos as you have. I love also the comments. Please continue commenting on the videos. I love reading them. And I love interacting with you guys. Thank you all so much. I'll catch you all on the flip side. Bye, everyone.